Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Shalom, shalom. This is Natalie Sapinski, and you're listening to Returning Home. I'm speaking to you from my home in Susia. It's Thursday afternoon here in Israel. It is beautiful out. It is finally fall, and the air is getting crisp and, cooling down. And, it's been a pretty quiet week. Sukkot's over. Everybody was taking down their sukkahs on, Sunday, taking their sukkahs down. And, normally after Sukkot, life goes back to normal. And we go back to our normal routine. And what's normal? Normal is kids go to school, mommies and daddies go to work. But now we're experiencing these coronavirus rules, and this country has been on a, pretty much like some kind of lockdown, and many things are closed, and there is no school, and many stores are closed. There are no restaurants. You can only be out of the house in a car for a reason. And you have to be ready to answer if the police are there. We've had police in Susia, and we've had police in disguise. You have to wear your mask if you're out, and it's disturbing. And I think this will pass, and it should be over on Sunday. But it's pretty quiet here, and the kids aren't out of the house, and that's the biggest change. My kids didn't go back to yeshiva, and my school children at home. So everyone's home. And what do I see? I see my kid on Zoom, the computer. And in the morning, this first class is now something like 10:30. And I see his teacher, this older man, who had a stroke about 5 years ago, greeting each student, each little boy. My boy is 10. It's so cute. Each boy by name. How are you? So good to see you. It must take 20 minutes. Each boy. And it's very warming to see this man who had a stroke, and he was actually injured years ago in a Hebron massacre. I think his stomach, he was sliced open, this man. And he's now, connecting to these little boys, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It's one, I guess, ray of sunshine that you can see during these difficult times. Someone like that, who maybe ordinarily would have had a hard time, is now being very productive and connecting to my kids. I love that. It's a nice thing to see. It's nice to see some good. Anyway, we'll be right back with our show. Please stick around. Thank you for joining us.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to Returning Home. This is Natalie Sapinski, and we are beginning with our first guest today, a woman I recently met, a chef instructor, and she runs a family foundation. She is a new immigrant like me, and she lives in Ra'anana. This is Shauna Goodman, and we're welcoming her to speak with us today. Shauna, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So, I don't know much about you, which is the best way to do an interview, and I do want to hear your story. All I remember when we spoke quickly is that you did not envision yourself living in Israel. You're not the typical Zionist religious family. So take it away. Let us hear your story and how you ended up here.
Wow. I guess we're still on the one-year program 6 years later. We were the family of 5. I have 3 sons. And we came on a one-year program to, discover Israel and to experience it on a daily basis. And I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be living here permanently and built a beautiful life and joined a fantastic community. And we really came with 14 hockey bags and ready to have an experience. And, smack in the middle of it, it was sort of like, why are we stopping? And so here we are 6 years later. We live in Renana, originally from Montreal, married to a Torontonian. We met at summer camp, and he claimed that he told me that it was his dream to live in Israel, and I somehow don't remember that conversation. But we had a beautiful life in Canada, and really part of a very rich Jewish life in Montreal. Our kids went to day school, they went to summer camp, and Israel was a big part of our life, but it was a place to visit.
Okay.
And we didn't really know people who lived here. So it was really out of the box thinking when we, told our families that we're going to come for a year, and a little radical because, everybody's on a pretty straight path. And we had a 15-year-old, and that's a challenging age. But we did it, and I don't regret it for a minute. So it's nice to say that we're entering our 6th year here. It's really hard to believe.
Right. So you came with a teenager.
We came with a teenager. We came with 3 boys. We came with a 2nd grader, a 5th grader, and a 9th grader.
Uh-huh. And okay, so when you say you came for this year of adventure, this year trial, what was that? Was it some kind of program? Was it a family program? What was that?
No, it was do it yourself, literally. I had been watching this TV show called House Hunters International, and I was so addicted to the thought of going somewhere so completely different, turn our lives upside down, build resilience, be adaptive, and really just embrace a new culture. And, I would sort of fantasize about Belize and, all these other places, and my husband kept saying, how about Israel? How about Israel? And I think Israel was a bit of a bigger, more serious conversation than, going to Belize for, 8 months. But I just sort of said, what? Let's do it. I wanted to go somewhere. Israel had been familiar. I'd been on the teen program. I went to Camp Ramat, so we went to camp, a seminar program. We did family trips to a synagogue. So it was very familiar to me, but I had never lived there, nor did I really know people, other Canadians that had really been living there.
Okay. Interesting.
And so we just took a gamble. And so, there was no program. There was no rule book. We had one friend here in Renana, and we had came for a pilot trip. And that was like our first trip ever, being on a plane without our children 17 years later in marriage. And we just sort of discovered this beautiful community of Renana. And I said, this seems really nice. Everybody seems really kind, and there was a lot of English. And I said, this could be a soft landing. Let's try this. And we didn't even look anywhere else, in all fairness.
Okay, so that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I guess, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Renana has, been a pretty developed city for a while. I mean, we had someone on the show earlier. They said there used to be an absorption center there. A lot of Anglos landed there, so that's pretty nice that you actually stayed. I
know there still is an absorption center here, and I really feel that we stayed because so many people before us paved the way and sort of set up so many organizations and ease for us to land so comfortably here. I mean, before I even knew anybody's last name, people were putting their numbers in my telephone going, you're going to need this, you're going to need this. And everybody seemed to want us to succeed. They wanted a hand in our aliyah, which was so nice to come in your 40s and people were so kind.
So that's good to hear. A success story is coming not when you have babies, and also not when you come here with family. You did it on your own. And it's very brave of you. It's a very good example to set. But your attitude is really good. You saw it as an adventure. Tell me what you did, if you can, before you came, because a lot of people are afraid to come to Israel because of their job situation. They can't transfer it. They can't change it. They don't know Hebrew. What did you do to make that step to succeed here?
Well, first of all, I had gone to day school, so I definitely knew my alphabet. I hadn't spoken Hebrew in a long time. I certainly love a good hallelujah song, once a year in the Yom HaSmooth parade, but my Hebrew was not anywhere near fluency. But I started taking Hebrew, which was really fun because my kids were in day school too, so it was a way to connect with them. We started speaking to, a million people, as many people that had a friend of a friend, how they did it, and, what do we need to look for? And, it took us 9 months to get out of our life. It's a big decision. We, again, were only coming for the 1-year program, just to get your head around, leaving your home, the family home, and there's layers of generations. Getting a grasp of the Hebrew was important. My husband was lucky that he was able to continue doing his job. He was already in a long-distance situation as is with his job, so he was portable. So that really, really helped because it, gave us purpose every day, and my work was able to be portable as well. But work is a big one because you need to have everybody is really super busy here, and they're, as I said, they're incredibly helpful, but they're also really busy in their own lives. So having something here when you land or bringing it with you to continue doing until, you can get a lay of the land really is a huge help.
Right. What are you doing now? You told me you're a chef instructor. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, I love to cook. I'm a trained chef, and I teach cooking classes in my house. And I love to mix my cooking with philanthropy and using the cooking as a platform for social change. So really, mixing, the styles of cooking and highlighting Israel's abundance. And the fact that everybody's locally here, seasonally, and it's such a smorgasbord of so many different flavors and cultures coming together that are so fiercely alive through so many individual kitchens. So I love to focus on that and what is, reasonable to create in a very fast turnaround time without using mixes and boxes and pre-made sauces of any kind. So you can use a
interesting.
And whatever falls off of a fruit truck here, or your friends, your neighbors who drop off lemons and persimmons on your doorstep. So I really try to focus on that and focus on the social needs that are around us. So cooking classes for something like leket, where we use the waste and what to do with leftovers. So the cooking theme is centered around what the organization actually highlights. And then the money goes towards the Amidah, which I really feel, people love to come around different issues. And if they know that they can give of themselves while having fun and meeting a new friend and having interesting conversation, I think it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. So leket I've heard of. I know they're pretty big. Like a food bank, I think.
Right? And it's actually started by a neighbor of mine here, Joseph Gitler, which rescues food. It's all about, food rescue and food security. But other organizations like Make-A-Wish Foundation was another one that we did at Snufa, the Kehila, which helps people,
when you say what do you do, how do you, I don't really understand how you combine cooking with that. Can you say it again? I don't know.
So basically what I do is I use the platform of a cooking class, and I design the menu around the social need. So the example was Leket. So Leket is a food rescuer, and they, glean from the fields ugly vegetables that, people don't want anymore, and they repurpose them. So many people in their kitchen struggle with what to do with leftovers, or what to do with really overripe tomatoes, or what to do with the half of the challah bread. After Shabbat, nobody wants to look at French toast anymore. So I try to find different ways of utilizing these ingredients and giving new life to them, which is what Let It does as an organization.
That's
so
what you mean.
I've been using food as a metaphor more to highlight the social issues that are around us, and there are plenty. That,
we're out of time. I can't believe we're out of time, Shauna. I can't believe we're out of time, but we are. Thank you for coming on. I will definitely want to have you back and talk more. This is a lot to talk about, and wow, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for including me.
Okay, Shauna, take care.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
All right.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Siminto from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Siminto, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Welcome back to Returning Home. This is your host, Natalie Sapinski. And we had to wrap up quickly with Shauna. You know, it's so funny. I think that people are never going to be able to fill the time, and they just start getting into the meat of it, and we got to go. And I really feel bad about that. So maybe we'll have her back. I hope so. It was really interesting. My guest now, David Brenner and his wife, Helene, good friends of mine. David has started Partners in Aliyah. And he is an Ole, like me. I believe he's from Maryland. And I want to welcome both David and Helene to the show. Thank you both for joining us today.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. So this is going to be tough because it's a couple. And this is actually, it's not tough. It's good. It's easy because we're going to let you both talk. But you got to be nice and take turns. So I don't know who you want to lead and who you want to follow, but I'm just going to give you the open mic, and just if you can tell us how you ended up in Israel from wherever you came from in America, and let's see how you can do that. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a shot. Well, first of all, in response to what you said, I think if a couple goes through an Aliyah, and you know, we're here 6 years, thank God. So I think if you're still here after 6 years and everything's still going okay, then you know you've resolved any potential arguments between the spouses. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah, sure.
So honestly, Helene and I both have similar backgrounds. Neither of us grew up in observant homes, and as for me, Israel wasn't much of a thought in my upbringing. It was much more so for Helene. And the first time I actually came to Israel was when Helene insisted that on our honeymoon in 2000. So we're dating ourselves a little bit, but in 2000 on our honeymoon we came to Israel. That was my first time, and it was your...
Yes, that was my fifth time, yeah.
So Helene actually had a lot of experience and interest in Israel before I met her, and I think that was one of the attractions. Although I still had no real thought about it, except that so we came here for 3 weeks on our honeymoon, and in the middle of the trip, I turned to her for whatever reason. I said, for no apparent reason, I said, you know, I could really live here. I don't know why I thought that, and from then. There wasn't anything that really happened for us for 10 years, right?
Well, there was a lot that happened for us in 10 years. We had two boys, Baruch Hashem, and became religious during that time. And when we left from our honeymoon, we said, okay, we got some amazing wine from the Golan Heights winery that we were going to open after 10 years. And we said, you know what, we'll come back on our 10th year anniversary. Fine, all's well and fine. But after we became religious and our boys were in a Zionist day school and Israel was on their mind, 10 years very quickly passed. And we said, hey, it's been 10 years. We've never taken our boys to Israel. We said 10 years ago that we'd come back on our anniversary trip. So 6 months later, we took a trip with the boys. They were 9 and 11 at the time. And we came here on a trip and, again, fell in love, but didn't think it could happen. Dave kept saying, oh, maybe in the future we'd want to live here. And I, no, definitely not. And then it was actually quite a faithful trip because at the end of the trip.
Yeah, basically, I think that it was definitely, this was destined that we were going to make Aliyah because this trip that we had planned, we came a lot of time in the planning. We knew we were going to come to Israel, and I had in America, like a lot of us who made Aliyah, and I'm sure you've seen on the show this trend. A lot of people coming Aliyah were at the top of their game in America, and for whatever reason, we were crazy enough to leave. And I had a great job at that time in America. I had a big team doing software development, and it was very high paying, and we were also very involved in our community and, involved in this and that and all these things. And Helene had a successful business running a preschool in our house. Anyway, we came on this trip and for 3 weeks. And long story short, the day I got back from my trip, I went into work and things seemed very strange. I wasn't getting emails from the company and this, that, and the other. And I came into work and I talked to a couple of the guys who were reporting to me. And I even said to them, I said, things seem very weird for me. And I sat down at my desk. I got in at about 9 o'clock. And at about 10 o'clock, I see HR coming up on my phone. HR wants to talk to me. And I'm like, this is not good. I walk into HR and there's my new boss, because I had just gotten a new boss. The company got sold and I had gotten a new boss. And he looked at me and he said, David, this is not going to work out. And he pushed this big stack of papers in front of me. He said, you got to sign these papers. You're out. They gave me a box. They walked me out the back of the building. I was done. Downsized. So I get in the car and I call Helene and I said, Helene, I just got fired. And she's like, what? And I said, not to worry. I'm just going to go into consulting. I'm going to figure out how to make a job where I don't have to be tied down to any office in any location, and we're going to make Aliyah. And I'm sure she thought I was nuts. And 3 years later, we made Aliyah. That was it.
Yeah, so
all right.
Definitely a surprise. But it worked. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, it definitely worked. So in those 3 years, we took, I think, 2 more trips.
One.
We took one?
Yeah, so he says this, right? He says, let's make Aliyah. And so we said, okay, well, I said, sure, whatever. But let's just come every summer. Let's just make it a summer thing. We'll introduce the boys, and then they'll grow up, and they'll want to live in Israel, and then they'll get jobs here and move here, and then we'll follow. Great. And I'm sure Dave said, whatever you say, thinking, of course, the whole time. No, we're moving. So a summer, past a year, we came for the summer. We came for 7 weeks. Dave was testing out the working in Israel thing.
So this is great advice for anyone who wants to, anyone who's interested, come and come for the summer, come with your family and live like Israelis. So that's what we did. I think this was 2 years after that trip. We came for the summer. We rented this old, rundown, cheap, dumpy apartment in Katamin. And we didn't know anything about it. And people were like, oh, you're going to live there. And Edward Fahim, it's incredible. The restaurants, we didn't know anything. We knew nothing about Israel. And we literally moved in there. And so we had all the restaurants. We had all the shtibel shuls. and I had my little setup, and I was on the phone talking to Bezik, trying to figure out Hebrew, and I worked, and I davened, and we had the most incredible summer, and halfway through, I talked to these guys who I was working with, and I was like, I want to make Aliyah, and they kind of were like, I think they kind of agreed. So then I announced my family halfway through the trip, I'm like, we're making Aliyah. And they're like, we're doing what? And I'm like, no, we're making Aliyah. And they were like, we thought this was a pilot trip. We thought this was just, we're coming for the summer. And I'm like, yeah, we're coming for this summer, and then we're coming back. And anyway, Helene was a pretty easy sell, and our boys finally came around. So then a year later, we were on the plane.
Okay. Now, can I back up a minute? Because you said at the beginning that you didn't have a religious background, and either did your wife, either did Helene. And when you came here, you had become religious. So you became religious in America, right?
Yeah.
And you became
I actually was involved in a youth group, and my youth group was very pro-Israel and very focused on Israel. And I was the only one in my family, but I became very Zionistic throughout high school. So if you knew me, you knew I was Jewish, and you knew I loved Israel. That was sort of my thing, which is why when I met Dave and he had never been here, I was, of course we have to go to Israel. You have to see Israel. You must see Israel. And so, like, I was in Yisrael and Aliyah. He was like, sure, I'll go to Israel. Sounds great. And after a few weeks, he was in love. So
you're very lucky. I mean, you're both very lucky. You're lucky, David, that you found Helene, and Helene loved Israel already. And Helene, you're lucky.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the attractions. And the truth is, early in our marriage, before we were religious, and we were going to conservative shuls in America, we were fanatical. We were like uber religious conservative Jews, because we made Kiddush on Friday night and had a Friday night dinner. And that put us like over the top. Even then, I think our families were already freaking out. And they were like, don't move to Israel, don't whatever, Jewish, but Jewish enough. They were already by then freaked out.
Don't be too Jewish. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that really worked out. So today you live in Efrat, a growing community. I think it's even a city. And we're out of time. Look, we're down to 1 minute. So quickly, we're going to have you back on. This is very good. But David, I want you to just do a shout out about Partners in Aliyah and talk to our listeners. So if anyone is interested in making Aliyah, they know where to go.
Yeah, God willing. So yes, we'd love to come back because there's a lot more story to tell. And in terms of Partners in Aliyah, so we have a site called partnersinaliyah.org, which Natalie, you have also been involved in from the beginning. And people can come and check it out at partnersinaliyah.org, and you can make a profile. And we have an incredible mentors program. So anyone who's interested in Aliyah who just wants to help, you can have a buddy. We will match you up, and it will help you through the process. And on the site, we have all kinds of incredible information in terms of you want to find a community, you want to find a lift, you want to get a lawyer, you want to find a CPA. There's all kinds of video content. There are more new features coming. So we'll talk about it more on your show, God willing, Natalie. Thanks so much for having us. Again, partnersinaliyah.org. I hope everyone who's listening to the show will just check it out.
Okay, thank you. We got to go. Thank you both for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on The Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. We are talking today with Ilana Singer. Ilana joined us last week, and she is living in Efrat. She's a real estate agent. We just got into her Aliyah story last week. We didn't get very far, so I asked her back. Thank you, Ilana. Thanks for coming back. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, good. You're back. Great.
I'm here. Yeah, thank you for having me, Natalie.
Good. I'm glad you can make it. I want to go on because we didn't get far enough. And, real estate and finding a home is a big part of moving to Israel. And, you're a real estate agent. How did that happen, first of all? What did you do before you came to Israel?
Before, when I was living in New York, I was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. I volunteered a lot on committees in the school that my kids were attending. Basically, I was a stay-at-home mom. But I always had an interest in real estate and houses. So when I came here, I had friends. We bought a home, and I had friends come from America that wanted to see houses that were for sale and to see what it was like. And I said, "Oh, I'll show you." Not as an agent, just like as a friend. I knew of properties that were for sale, and I would take them. And I was doing that for like a year or two, and then my husband said to me, "Why don't you just get a license and make it a career?" And I said, "That's a great idea." And so I did.
Good for you.
I love being an agent. I find it really rewarding, helping people find their dream home in Israel. And it's so important to me to know and rewarding that I'm helping people settle in our homeland.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. And you have to be licensed here. To get licensed, you get licensed by the Ministry of Justice. There's a course that could be taken to prepare you for taking the licensing exam in Hebrew. There are a lot of brokers here in Israel. And I like to think that I differentiate myself from the other brokers in my white glove service with my clients. And I really listen to them, hear what they are looking for, and I'm happy to help them find. I've helped many, many people find homes here all over Israel.
Yeah, it's amazing. Was that difficult taking that exam? Did you say you had to take the exam in Hebrew?
The exam is given in Hebrew, but what they do is for Olim, you're allowed to bring in, first of all, you're allowed to bring in the course material, which I was able to get in English. You're allowed to bring in a Hebrew-English dictionary, or what I did, I made myself my own dictionary, and with words from tests that I took online, practice tests. So the words repeat themselves. It was easier for me, and I did really well on the test, thank God.
Amazing. See, I love it. That's what you do when you come to Israel. You gotta do what you gotta do. Any way you can do it. That's what you did. That's great.
Yeah. That's my passion.
So you meet a lot of Olim, okay? And you probably meet them before they come, and then they have all their questions. So what is like the hardest problem you have? What is the I guess a mistake that you see over and over again that we can tell our listeners so maybe they can avoid making that mistake?
So I don't really have any clients that have ever said to me they made a mistake in choosing their home. As an agent, I do everything I can to avoid all mistakes that can be made. I recommend to my clients to have a good team in place, meaning a good lawyer, an engineer, an architect, a contractor if they need one, if they're purchasing. If they're renting, I would recommend speaking to the prior tenants and see what it's like dealing with the landlord that they have. I think a common mistake people have is that they think that buying a property here is similar to buying a property in the U.S., which it is not. Generally here, there's no such thing as a closing. Once you sign the contract, that's it. You don't necessarily have to take possession of the property right away. A payment schedule can be made between the two parties, and upon the last payment, the buyer gets the keys to the property. But there's no formal closing like they have in the U.S. That's why it's so important to have all your financing arranged beforehand with your mortgage. And if my clients need any recommendations for a mortgage broker or a lawyer, engineer, etc., I'm happy to provide them with recommendations.
Okay.
I found another mistake that I've come across are people waiting for the real estate bubble to burst so they can make a killing. And the 17 years I've been here, I haven't seen that happen. While there is sometimes a downturn in the market, the prices will go down a little. The key here is to find a property that is fairly priced, and that's where I come in. I provide comps in the area of similar properties sold so that my clients know they're paying a fair price for the property. And if you're buying a property on paper, it can be worthwhile financially, but there are other disadvantages, such as waiting a year or 2 or 3 for the building to be finished.
Okay, so you're covering a few different things here. You're talking about a property on paper. When you say a property on paper, you mean something that is not existing yet in the
Right.
world. It's
not existing.
right.
New construction. New construction.
Uh-huh. I would think some people, would be very, very wary of that. But it happens here. I mean, in Israel, I'll just say this is my 2 cents, okay? You're the expert here, Alana, but I always thought it was remarkable that in Israel, things are either very, very old or very, very new. And you can, comment on that. We see construction. I talk about this in my blog. I talk about there's building going on all the time. There's
everywhere. A lot of construction going on all over the country.
That's right.
A lot of new things going up, and there's a lot of existing apartments and homes as well, which there's nothing wrong with them. It's really key to go to a community, an area that you like and would feel comfortable in.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. Like, people who haven't ever been here before and, say they don't have family that they want to live like. Say they only have very religious family and they're not so religious. How do they find a place? There are many, many communities here. I mean, there are tons of choices. How do you help? Can you help? Can you advise?
Sure.
And narrow down their choices. Do you do that? Okay, good.
Yeah. I would ask them if they're working in this country, where they plan on working, and to try to be as close to the workplace as possible. In America, people are used to traveling an hour and a half, even 2 hours sometimes to get to work every day. In Israel, people, if you told them that, they would think you're nuts. People don't usually do that in Israel. They usually try to work within half an hour maximum. That's already a lot for people to travel in this country. So I would say to choose a community that's not far from your workplace.
Yeah. Another thing, so you're a real estate agent. So when they're talking to you, you're giving them information, and you're human. You only have the information you have. There are some people who hate their communities, and how do you, I guess I'm trying to ask you, like, how do you get the skinny? How do you get the inside dirt on some of these communities? Because it's hard to find that, the truth. Some people just talk everything up. Okay. The other day, for instance, I was on a Facebook group and somebody asked, I want to live in this community in X. Does anybody know anyone who lives in X? And I know someone who lives in X, and she hates it, right? So I gave her name, and somebody wrote to me offline, why did you give her name? She hates X. And I said, I think people should hear the good and the bad. I don't think you should gloss over anything.
Right. I agree with you, but it would be good to get, some advice from people that actually do like living in that area. And I say the key here for the Aliyah process is to get as much information that you can get as possible, and to have faith. You have to be knowledgeable about the process and ask a lot of questions. Reach out to people who have done it already, even on Facebook. It's a great way to reach out to people. But sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith, even though it may seem illogical. Somehow it just usually works out for people. Yeah,
look, I mean, people are coming and they're staying, and they're buying homes, sight unseen,
yes,
where once people were doing the pilot trips, they can't do them anymore because of Corona. So they're just, doing it the long distance. And I guess you're seeing that all the time.
All the time. I just got another new client the other day from California who's interested in making Aliyah, not now, at some point, but wants to buy a property now. I'm dealing with this since Corona started, buying and selling the properties online for people through videos, through pictures, virtual tours of the properties, and that's how they're buying their properties now.
So I'm going to ask you one more question. I think we're down to 3 minutes, so quickly answer this. How about older people who are going to just get older and older, and eventually they may end up in assisted living? Do you handle that?
Do I have what?
Do you handle that? Do you handle older people? Older
I don't handle assisted living, but there are a lot of assisted living places people could find online. I could recommend to people. I would say if they don't need assisted living, for retirees, Jerusalem has a lot of activities, all kinds of learning classes, culture, sporting events and shows in non-COVID times, of course. If they wanted warmer weather and wanted to be near the sea, I'd recommend Netanya, Tel Aviv, or Ashdod. And as I said last time, Efrat and Gush Etzion is a great place for seniors. We have a senior center that caters to the seniors and we have plans to build senior housing here so that the grandparents can live near their children and grandchildren. And in terms of non-religious people, they move to all kinds of communities.
Yeah.
There are a lot of many mixed communities here, many secular communities, many religious communities. There are secular people who prefer to live in a religious community. That is the beauty of Israel. It all depends what the people are looking for. What's important is that they live in a place that isn't too far for them to travel to work, live near family and friends if possible, and to make sure there are appropriate schools for their children if they have children of that age.
Well, thank you, Ilana. That's IlanaRealty.com, correct?
Yeah, that's my website, IlanaRealty.com, ELANAREALTY.com, and my email address is Ilana@IlanaRealty.com.
Wonderful.
And I'd be happy to help anybody who's looking to purchase a home here or rent or just wants information. Happy to help them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the information. And we'll talk to everyone next week. Thank you for joining us. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on Returning Home. This is Natalie Sapinski, and we'll see you all next week.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.